Welcome back. Is eating eggs daily really bad for you? That is the question we're going to be addressing today. Okay, so welcome back. I'm Dr. Olusegun. I'm here at Angelic Wellness, and I want to talk today about what is cholesterol, because I know once I say eating eggs every day, that's what everybody's thinking, right? There are a lot of diets now that are encouraging patients to eat, eggs on a daily basis. Things like the paleo diet, things like the carnivore diet. We have, patients that intermittently fast and also include a lot of eggs in their breakfast options and things like that. So there's this concern that, we've been taught that cholesterol is really high in eggs, and for patients that have high blood pressure or diabetes or any type of cardiovascular disease, should not really be eating a lot of eggs. And I get this question often from patients. In fact, they've switched to eating something not so healthy because they've had to stop eating eggs. So these patients are now eating cereals with sugar and dairy in the morning. Oh my God, no. Okay, so they're switching from eggs to these options that is probably even worse for them than eating nutritious, balanced, superfood egg. Okay, so let's talk about it. What is cholesterol? Why are we even worried that eggs have a lot of cholesterol in it? Okay, so this is something that you might realize that you don't know a lot about cholesterol as you think you do. Okay, so there's a lot of misconception about what is cholesterol, right? So I want to try to explain it in a way that is easy to understand. So I'm not going to use a lot of fancy terms so that it can actually make sense to you. Okay, so what is cholesterol? Believe it or not, cholesterol is a lipid or an oil, and it is very what we call hydrophobic, which means that it does not like water very much. And because of this, it is hard for cholesterol to just transport easily in the blood, because the blood is mostly water, right? And cholesterol does not really, just like we say oil and water don't mix very well, same thing with cholesterol, right? It doesn't mix very well in the bloodstream. So in order for our bodies to have access to cholesterol, we had to make something called a lipoprotein. So these are actually proteins or amino acid sequences that are hydrophilic, which means that they love water. Okay, they have this affinity towards water. So our body, when we say cholesterol, we are actually talking most of the time about these lipoproteins. These lipoproteins are the vehicle, okay? Think of it like the car that actually carries the cholesterol molecule to travel in the bloodstream. And when we are measuring your cholesterol, what we're actually measuring is these lipoprotein levels. We are checking to see how much of those proteins that you've made and what type you have made, and then we label them in different ways, okay? So I'm gonna go back to explaining why did we have to make this special vehicle to carry this special thing called cholesterol. So cholesterol is this lipid that every cell in our body needs. And I mean needs. Without cholesterol in the membrane of your cells, that membrane cannot stay the structure, the spherical structure that it is. So this is so important that the body realizes that if it doesn't have cholesterol, it's not going to have the fluid ability that it needs to have to be able to get into different blood vessels and into different tissues and so on, right? So for that reason, this cell membrane that needs cholesterol realizes that if I get carried by a lipoprotein, I might be able to navigate this whole system better, okay? So every cholesterol molecule is bound to a lipoprotein, which is the carrying molecule, okay? I hope that makes sense so far. Now, once we have cholesterol in our membrane, okay, now the membrane structure can function normally, because without it, guess what? There's no human life. We're made up of trillions and trillions of cells, right? So if these cells don't have this cholesterol in them, they don't have their shape, therefore they cannot exist. All right, so we now see how important it is to have cholesterol. So don't fall into the trap of trying to drive your cholesterol to nothing, because that means what? You're preparing to die. Okay, we're not trying to lower cholesterol ridiculously. All right, we need it. Okay, so now going back to lipoproteins. Lipoproteins is what we really measure in your blood work. So when we're checking your cholesterol level, again, we're checking lipoproteins. So there are two kinds of lipoproteins. Okay, we have the A and we have the B. So we call it ApoA and ApoB. ApoA is where this HDL comes from. It's called the high density lipoprotein, right? High density meaning like it weighs a lot, right? It's dense, okay? But weighs a lot. Okay, so high density lipoprotein is an example of ApoA. Okay, this is also what the one we call the good cholesterol. And why do we call it the good cholesterol? Because it is the cholesterol or the lipoprotein, okay, that carries the bad stuff out of your blood vessels, recycles it to the liver so that it can get out of your body. Okay, so again, we call it good cholesterol because it is the one that carries bad stuff out of your blood vessels into the liver to get recycled out. Okay, so think of it like a garbage truck that comes to your street, picks up all the crud out of there. Okay, so that's why we like it and call it the good cholesterol. Okay, now the second type of lipoproteins are called ApoB. Okay, so ApoB actually has a ton of different lipoproteins types. Okay, so one type we call VLDL, meaning, you know, very dense lipoprotein. Then we have the IDL, which is intermediate in size. Okay, then we have the LDL, which a lot of you are familiar with, is the so-called bad cholesterol. And then we also have one called ApoA. Okay, it's ApoA is the big A is the HDL, which we already talked about. But there is a type of ApoB protein called ApoA. Okay, so there's just 4 examples that I'm going to mention there of ApoB type of lipoproteins. So why am I going into all this detail? Well, LDL, which is the so-called bad cholesterol, we call it bad because one, it is one of the most abundant ApoB type of lipoproteins or cholesterol carrying molecules. And we know that it is the one that carries oxidized cholesterol, which is meaning cholesterol that has been damaged by free radicals, inflammation, and so on and so forth. So it carries those, but it goes and dumps them in the wall of your arteries. I know, right? I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you come to my street and just stop dumping trash, like for no reason? There's a dumpster, go put it in there. Okay. All right, so just think about it like that, okay? So that's why we call it the bad cholesterol, because it is bringing oxidized cholesterol that's no good for you and leaving it in the lining of your arteries, okay? So when this happens, then we worry about, okay, eventually that might start becoming very sticky. All the blood cells and blood particles stick to it, and then you start to form a plaque, and then eventually thickens, and then you block the artery, right? That's why we don't like it, okay? So that's LDL, and it's the most abundant of this ApoB. So when we're really measuring and we're trying to figure out how much cholesterol you have, we're kind of figuring out how much LDL do you have, maybe how much VLDL do you have, and we kind of add it up and say that's your total bad cholesterol, okay? So once we know the difference between these ApoA and ApoB, we now know that the one that puts you at risk, that gives you cardiovascular risk, is really this ApoB family, right? So that's what we really want to be measuring and have good understanding. So I tell my patients, look, once I do a basic lipid panel and I see some elevation in your, bad cholesterol, for example, I want to go a little bit further and do what we call the advanced lipid panel, okay? So don't just have your doctor measuring the same lipid panel every year, okay? Telling you, your cholesterol is high, your cholesterol is high. Which one exactly is high, okay? We need to know which of these lipoprotein is high. So getting what we call the advanced lipid panel is going to then share with you the actual density of all these different proteins. Which one do you have? What is their size? How big are they? How small are they? And so on, okay? So the bigger they are, they're fluffy and they don't really cause much problem. The denser they are, especially when it comes to the ApoB protein, the more we worry, okay? So that's kind of what we are concerned about, and that's what we're looking for in the advanced lipid panel. So we know whether we need to worry, whether we need to send you to the cardiologist to go, do some investigation into your arteries and scope them and look and make sure that there's no clogging and plaque formation happening, okay? So that's very important for you to understand. And if you have that basic understanding about cholesterol, you know that most patients about this molecule, okay? So we're gonna go into why do people then tell you not to eat eggs? Well, eggs are very abundant in cholesterol, right? But the other thing that they are not telling you is that eggs also have a lot of vitamin D, they have a good percentage of omega-3 fatty acids, they are full of minerals, they are high in protein that's good for you. So when we look at the studies, we actually find that it's better for you to be eating, maybe 2 to 3 eggs a day rather than eating cereal with dairy poured on top. You heard me right? Yes, I'd rather you be eating a good amount of egg in the morning than eating cereal with dairy poured on top of it, okay? Because cereals and dairy, that combination is high sugar and high inflammation, okay? So I usually try to take my patients off of those processed foods and put them on something more natural like eggs from free-range chickens, okay? And when you eat these eggs, we also have to be careful what oils we cook it in, because that could be the reason you're making your eggs not so healthy, okay? Don't fry it in no vegetable oils. No. The canola oil, the corn oil, no. We don't want any of that, okay? We want things like avocado oil, right? Coconut oil. Those type of healthy oils is what we want to use to fry our eggs. And you don't have to fry it, you can also boil it. I boil my eggs all the time. Also easy to transport. You just got yourself a superfood that's really relatively cheap, okay? So you can do that and eat it, every day. So you can boil it to reduce the amount of fat content, right? So you don't have to always fry it. But if you do fry it, like I said, try to use healthier oils, not seed oils, not vegetable oil like the canola and like I said before, okay? So very important. So I'm for eating eggs. I would love to hear your comments about this one. I know. Lots of controversy is gonna happen in the comment section. Some people hate it, some people love it. Hey, we want to share here. Share your opinion, your experience. Have you taken eggs out of your diet and your cholesterol went up, okay? Or did you add eggs to your diet and your cholesterol went down? Let's hear it. I'd love to read your comments on this one. And feel free to ask questions. I will be answering them as well. Okay? See you on the next one. Bye for now.